Welcome back to the Discover podcast, where we view faith as a discovery journey with Jesus to help you become the person God created you to be. Well, hey there, Meadowbrook Church. Welcome back to this episode of the Discover podcast. As you can see, we're in a little bit different of a space than we are normally in, and that's because we're bringing just a little bit different of an episode to you today. You see, there's no guest with me today. It's just me, and part of that's been because we worked really hard to line up all the 15 guests we had up to this point, and with Easter and just the build up to Easter, we just didn't have any more people lined up, and so we've kind of reached and not necessarily the end of our first stretch, but we didn't really know kind of how this podcast was going to unfold. We didn't know how people were going to respond to it. And so we said, let's just get this far in and then see where we're at. And so we've been really encouraged by the response of people who are viewing, listening to the podcast. I would say just about every week at church, somebody is coming up to me and saying, man, I'm really enjoying listening to the stories of these people at our church and just enjoying getting to know them. And some people are even making connections with the folks we've had on our podcast because their story resonates with the guest's story, and so they're just making relationships and connections that way. So we're in a place where we are going to keep doing this, and so we just are in a place of now kind of not necessarily rebooting, but kind of gearing up for our next stretch of episodes. And so one of the things that we're hoping to do in the weeks to come is to film some episodes with some therapists. One of the things that's unique about our church is that we have all of these medical professionals who come to our church because the medical college is right down the road. And we also have all of these therapists who come to our church. And we just know a lot of therapists in the area, not sure why that's the case. And so we've just started to ask some people who are counselors to say, hey, could you come on our podcast and talk to us specifically about how the development of somebody's story can be impacted by different factors in their life. Maybe it's trauma, maybe it's family of origin stuff. So in the weeks to come, that's what we're going to be talking about. But for today, we're doing a shorter episode. And I thought what we'd do for today is I would just kind of open up my storyteller's journal and kind of share some of the reflections that I have had in my own life over the last 4 months as I've been kind of tracking what God is doing in my life. And so earlier this week, I just sat down with my journal and I went back. If you remember, everybody got these like little sticker things that you're supposed to use to mark Kairos moments. So I've been using mine. I've been putting them in the journal when I have a Kairos moment, and I've been writing about them. And so I just went back through and looked at those in my journal. And I want to share just a few reflections of where and how I've seen God at work in my life over the course of the last few months. And so I broke it down into like probably four different categories of where I've seen God at work in my life. And the first one is just interactions with people. As I look back through, I noticed like, hey, I had this interaction with this individual, and it was either a challenging interaction, or it was a really encouraging interaction, or maybe it was an interaction with my kids, and I'm trying to figure out how to parent them and raise them up so that they know and follow Jesus. And so I found that God has been very much at work in my life through all of these different interactions that I have with people. One that stands out to me, back in January, we were looking to replace Nate Gruber, our former discipleship director. We have since hired Jake Milsna, super excited about having him, but we were interviewing a bunch of people. And there was a guy named Greg who reached out to me, who saw the job posting, in some ways was curious about the job, in some ways was interested in possibly applying for the job. He's in, I think, the Kansas City area, but from Wisconsin. And for a variety of reasons, he said now's not the right time for him to apply for this job. But we connected through LinkedIn, we connected over email, and then he asked if we could set up a face-to-face Zoom conversation. And so we did that. And he just was curious to get to know me and curious to understand our ministry, thinking that maybe someday they'll end up in the Milwaukee area. And who knows if he would ever work here, but maybe they would attend here. And since that time, he has just messaged me every so often little encouragements, almost right at the right moment. Hey, thinking about you, praying for you, hoping Meadowbrook has a great Sunday today. And it's been a reminder to me that there are people in our life who are just great encouragers, and God uses them to encourage us along the way. And God has used this guy, Greg, to just be an encouragement to me when I'm feeling weighed down by what's coming, on a Sunday morning, all that we've got to do, or just different things that I'm working through. And so that's been a great encouragement for me. And I've found that God is very much at work, providing encouragement in my life through relationships. The other one that I noticed was there was just lots of highs and lows in my vocational work. I think we all experience that. We all have moments where we have great victories and successes, and then we have challenges and struggles. And I noticed along the way in my journal, as I was writing about maybe some speaking opportunities that I've had, or maybe some writing opportunities that I've had. I had one cancel on me. I had a speaking opportunity hopefully lined up for March that canceled on me, which was a great disappointment. But then the very next week, God provided another one to fill that spot. As I'm writing, I'm working on a couple articles right now. Sometimes they're just really hard and really challenging, and I get stuck. And I find that God is at work in those places in my life. I don't share a lot about the Kairos moments I have when I'm preparing a sermon, because I feel like sometimes people can't relate to that. What I do with sermons is kind of unique, but I've also had tons of moments where God has just provided an illustration or an idea, or I went into a Sunday and I'm like, I have no idea if this sermon's going to be any good, and it ends up being really, really, it just resonates with people, and it seems to work really well. And so all along the way, I've had these moments of both great frustration, but great encouragement in my vocational work. And it's a reminder to me that in the simplest places of life, the relationships that I have with people every day, and the work that I do every day, God is present with me, disrupting my world or getting my attention in moments of, again, encouragement or discouragement, to remind me that He's in it with me. Two other places that I'll share. One was when we were on spring break. We had a good time getting away for spring break, but we also had some frustrating moments as a family, just navigating our travels. We had our car, we have this van that has this automatic sliding door, and it broke on the trip, and it was just this great moment of frustration, because it's going to be a big expense. Does it actually work? We have to travel 15 hours home. Is the car door going to work? Is it going to latch? We got to pay money for it. There was conflict in the family around it. And so moments like that along the way, God is in the midst of those with us, continually teaching me. One of the things I was anxious about and frustrated about with that car door breaking was just the expense of it. And God continually reminding me that He's going to provide for everything that we need. Sometimes I find that I get anxious about finances, and I find I place more confidence and trust in the perceived security and safety that I have in finances than anything else. And when there's a big expense, a big unexpected expense, it kind of rocks some of my confidence. But God is in the midst of that. We paid for the car door. It was less than I thought it was going to be. It didn't shatter our bank account at all. And it's just God's I've got this. I've got you. Trust me. Believe what you tell people all the time that comes from the Lord's Prayer. Lord, give me this day my daily bread. Remember what He says in Luke 12. God takes care of the birds of the air and the flowers of the field. How much more important are you than they? And He will take care of you. And so the last thing that I wrote about was, I have this big thyroid that's kind of odd, that I've had to pay attention to over the last handful of years. And initially there was a little hey, is there cancer there? And we got it biopsied and it's fine. But I have this this thing that's just there. And so in the last few months, I had to get another ultrasound on it, and I also had to go in for just a visit to get that read. And it's fine; they're not worried about it. But it's just this thing that's on my mind. As I'm getting older, it's reminding me of just like how my body is not going to last forever the way that it is. Like, I'm at a point in life where my body is probably going to start to break down more and more, and I'm going to feel like, I joked coming back from spring break, like my back has been really sore. And so God has just been reminding me about kind of the fragility of life through that as well. And I think as I look back on all of these things, as I look at the vocational highs and lows, as I look at some of the, big expenses that come my way in life, and as I think about health, like the thing that God has been teaching me through all of these different Kairos moments is that the control that I like to think I have in life, I actually don't have. Which for me, that's an invitation from God to trust Him in all of these little areas of my life, with work, with my health, with my relationships, with finances, to trust that He's in it with me. He's actually leading me and guiding me. He's continually providing me everything that I need and more. And like we said recently on Easter morning, because of the resurrection, everything is going to be okay. And so that's just some kind of random reflections from my life, from my storyteller's journal that I've been writing over the last 4 months. And our hope is that you have been engaging with this journal as well. I'm also having people come up to me like, hey, I've got a Kairos moment, or hey, I heard this person share about a Kairos moment. And so again, if you're watching this and you're like wondering what is that language of Kairos moments all about, you can find it all on the Storytellers page on our website. And we hope that, one, you've enjoyed this podcast up to this point. Two, we hope that you're engaging in the simple practice of paying attention to what God's doing in your life and participating in it. And that as we move forward as a church, you will continue to have opportunities to tell the story, not just to Meadowbrook, but also to the community around us, of what God is doing in your life, and specifically how you're responding and following Him, fully surrendering your life to Him, trusting Him day by day. So look forward to more episodes on this podcast. We hope to have some back next week with another guest. We're going to interview Jake Milsna. We're going to interview Heather Darnell, 2 staff members, and then we're going to start to interview more and more people. So share your stories with us. Follow along as we tell other people's stories, and hope that you find that God is encouraging you to share your own story as well. Grace and peace to you. Felt very rambly.
It did not sound great.
Okay.